I get asked all the time, is everything a conspiracy? Now, obviously, the short answer is no. Not everything we see and hear is a conspiracy. However, with that being said, the deeper you look into the world we live in, you'll realize that things are much more complicated than they appear, right? That nothing is ever simple, nothing is ever black and white. And the other day, I came across a very fun and possibly silly video about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And like I said, this video on the surface seems to be very silly, but it's one of those videos that points out a possibility or a alternative view to the world. And if this video is true, it completely flips the narrative of my childhood, of your childhood, right? If you were around my age, we all loved the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And what this video suggests is that our favorite crime-fighting mutants might actually be the bad guys. Now, I want to say allegedly, right? Because there's no proof of this other than this one video. But let's take a look at the video and you can make a decision for yourself. Let's check it out.
Shit's getting weird. Part Infinity. I would like to make a formal apology to Shredder. Shredder, I'm sorry. I heard some news today that has shooken my world. Apparently, this guy made a video online talking about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and how they were reptilians underground eating pizza. And the pizza part is significant because the code word for pizza is pedophiles. So the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were actually pedophiles eating pizza underground because they were reptilians. And Shredder was trying to take them down. And the reason Shredder could never take them down is because the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles had this heifer, the mainstream media, on their side to control the narrative and push the propaganda. Shredder, we're sorry, buddy. Now don't get me wrong, you was moving a little wild. But maybe you were trying to protect us. Maybe you were the good guy.
So there you have it, right? There's the video. So after watching that video, my first thought, and probably your first thought, is that's just a funny, silly viral video. And on one level, that's true, because there is actually an entire genre of YouTube videos where they flip the script, right? There's one about the Karate Kid that has over 15 million views. I'll put the link to that video in the show notes. That video is titled Daniel is the Real Bully. And it's about a 5-minute long video, and it breaks down how Daniel is actually the bad guy and Johnny is actually the good guy. And it's funny and it's smart, and it actually makes a good point, right? When you watch that video, you could easily buy into that narrative that Daniel was the bad guy. He was the new kid that came in and disrupted the harmony of Johnny's life. And there are also videos about another one of my favorite movies, Star Wars, that does the same thing. Videos talking about how the Empire were actually the good guys, how the Jedi were the bad guys, and they were corrupt, just like the Karate Kid video and just like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle video. They do a good job of changing the narrative and making you think and question, well, who is the good guy and who is the bad guy? And see, that's the real point, to show how easy it is to change a narrative, how easy it is to flip the script. And see, right now we're just talking about fiction, right? We're just talking about the Ninja Turtles, talking about Star Wars, we're talking about Karate Kid. But if you can change the narrative on these fictional stories, is it possible to do this in real life? Now, we're going to get into that, but before we do, I want to bring it back to the Ninja Turtles video, because I want to go a little deeper into the conspiratorial world of one possibility of what this video might be actually showing us. See, in the conspiratorial world, there is this thing or this idea called revelation of the method. And I'll admit this is where it starts to get a little crazy and a little weird, but just because it's crazy and just because it's weird doesn't mean that there is some truth behind this. So, what is revelation of the method? Well, in the conspiratorial or occult circles, it's this belief that our rulers, the elite, the ruling class, whatever you want to call them, the idea is that they must reveal their plans symbolically or openly through media, through movies, and through predictive programming. And what they must do is that they must reveal the truth of their plans in order to transfer karmic responsibility to the public. See, in other words, if the ruling class just does something bad, something to enslave us, something to lower our energy, then they bear the karmic response, right? And it's based on this idea that karma is real, which I believe it is. If karma is real, if you do something bad will happen to you. So how do you do something bad without anything bad happening to you? Well, that's this idea of revelation of the method. And many believe that this is a universal law. So if they tell us what they're doing in the form of movies, music, entertainment, and we do nothing about it, then they are absolved of the karmic responsibility and we take the burden on ourselves. Now, is this idea of revelation of the method real? I don't know. But if you think about things and look at things through this lens, the whole world starts to change. You start seeing everything hidden in plain sight. You start looking at movies and music and television and commercials and books completely different. And so thinking about this idea of revelation of the method, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles have all the components of something deeper and darker hidden in plain sight. The turtles are reptilians. And anyone that knows, anyone who's deep into the conspiratorial world know that the reptilians are the bad guys, right? They are the people controlling our world. They are our controllers. You also have media manipulation, as the video we watched earlier pointed out. April O'Neil was a friend of the Turtles. April O'Neil is a journalist for a news organization. You also have underground networks, right? The turtles live in the sewers. And then you also, as the video showed, you have the symbolism of pizza, which we're not going to get into, but if you know, you know, right? And so looking at it through that lens, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles check all the boxes for some of the deepest, darkest conspiracies we have in the world right now. So based on that, what do you think is going on? Do you think this is just coincidence, or do you think the Ninja Turtles are actually part of revelation of the method? And the truth is, I don't know, right? See, gun to my head, I would say that the Ninja Turtles are just a fun cartoon and that there is nothing dark going on. But with that being said, this is a perfect example of flipping the narrative. And this is actually extremely important because the narratives we are given, the stories we are told have a huge effect on how we view and interpret the world in which we are living. And like I mentioned earlier, one of the best examples of that, of flipping the narrative, is from Star Wars. And I would say about 4 or 5 years ago, I saw this meme from Star Wars that completely changed my view on the narratives that we are given. See, one of the things we love about Star Wars and why it's so popular, because it's the ultimate movie about good versus evil, right? You have the Jedi versus the Sith. You have the light side of the Force and you have the dark side of the Force. Star Wars is very black and white, and that's why we love it. But like I said, 4 or 5 years ago, I saw this meme that completely changed how I thought about everything. All right, so let's take a look at this meme. So it's a picture of Luke Skywalker, and it says, Star Wars is the story of an orphaned farm boy that is radicalized after a military strike kills his family. He is indoctrinated into an ancient religion and joins a band of insurgents on a terrorist attack that kills 300,000 people. Now, this is a crazy meme because you realize how much that sounds like a narrative we were given, especially around the 9/11 times. So when the theme of Star Wars is the Empire the good guy or the bad guy? And the truth is, it's complicated. Now, obviously, the Empire, they blew up an entire planet, which is pretty bad. And they blew it up with a military weapon called the Death Star. So if you name something the Death Star, I'm going to assume your intentions are pretty bad. But with that being said, the rebels, which was the group that Luke Skywalker was associated with, well, they planned an attack on said Death Star and actually blew it up. And when we saw this in the movie, we cheered. But if you look at it from a deeper level, what was the Death Star? Well, it was essentially a military base, right? And a military base that had hundreds of thousands of people on it. And all of those people died. But how many of them were actually guilty? I guarantee you that there were cooks, janitors, maintenance crews, medics, there were new recruits, there were low-ranking soldiers, there were administrators, there were engineers, and on a military base that big, there probably were even family members. There were probably women and children aboard. So when you look at it through this lens, you realize that there were probably a lot of innocent civilians and just innocent people in general that were killed because of this attack by the quote-unquote good guys, which again is crazy to think about. And look, I know that Star Wars is just a made-up movie, but there's a bigger point to all this. And that point is, see, we were given one narrative that a particular group of people were good and a particular group of people were bad. But if you really look past that surface layer, you realize that it is very complicated and it's hard to tell who's actually the good guys and the bad guys. And it really depends on where you're getting your information and what side of the line you stand on. Because there are a lot of people now, family members of the Empire, who think of the rebels as bad. And so, yes, I'm talking about a movie, but I want to point out the larger fact that if it's this easy to manipulate our view of movies, if you can manipulate the way you look at Star Wars, if you can manipulate the way you look at the Karate Kid or the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, how easily do you think it is to manipulate real world events, especially with the right headlines, talking points, media coverage, or political agendas? I mean, think about it like this. If filmmakers, writers, and YouTubers can manipulate the message, can manipulate a fictional message with a few clever edits and reframes, imagine what governments, intelligent agencies, and multi-billion-dollar media companies can do, especially when we know that they have massive budgets and they understand behavioral psychology and they have access to your data and your algorithms and they have experience, right? They have decades upon decades of practice manipulating the narrative. And see, when you understand this, you realize that these billion-dollar institutions can create reality. They can create heroes. They can manufacture villains. They have the power to bury certain stories. And at the same time, they can amplify other stories. And by doing this, they have the power and ability to shape our emotions and direct our thoughts. Or another way to think about this is if a simple YouTube video or meme can change the way you think about the Karate Kid or Star Wars or Luke Skywalker or the Jedi or the Empire, how hard would it be for governments to reframe history, justify a war, or flip a national narrative? And see, once you understand this, this can lead you to questioning everything you know about your reality. And the truth is, you probably should start questioning your reality. I mean, for all I know, maybe the Ninja Turtles were actually the bad guys. Maybe the Empire was just trying to bring order and democracy to the galaxy. Maybe the rebels were actually terrorists who hated the Empire for their freedoms. Or maybe narratives are very easily manipulated, which leads to something even crazier. Because if the present can be rewritten through perspective, this also means that the past can be rewritten in the exact same way. As the old saying goes, history is always written by the winners. And George Orwell nailed it years ago when he said, "He who controls the past controls the future, and he who controls the present controls the past," which is another way of saying that if you control the message, then you control the world. See, the takeaway from all this is that you should start asking questions. You should ask yourself, who decides what we're supposed to believe? And who benefits from the story that you are being given? Like I said at the beginning, I'm not saying that everything is a conspiracy. And I'm not saying that everything you hear, that there's an agenda behind it. But I am saying that there seems to be a universal truth that whoever controls the narrative controls reality, which is crazy to think about. See you on the other side.